Right. Today we're jumping headfirst into the world of martial arts to unpack a really fascinating story about succession. It's all about identity and what it really means to carry on a master's legacy, especially when blood isn't the whole story.
And this really is the big question, isn't it? In these traditions that go back forever, is a legacy just about who's next in line by blood or who has the right title? Or is there something deeper going on? A kind of spiritual inheritance you just can't write down on a piece of paper. So, just to be clear, what we're going to do here is lay out the argument presented in our source material. We're not here to prove it or disprove it. We're just trying to understand the case that's being made, piece by piece. Okay, so here's our roadmap for this. First, we'll tackle this whole concept of a karate son. Then, we're going to dig into the three main pillars of the argument: the personal bond, the family's blessing, and the passing on of the actual teachings. And finally, we'll see how it all comes together. Let's dive in. So first things first, what are we even talking about? In a lot of traditional martial arts, picking a successor isn't like, choosing a new CEO. It is way, way deeper. We're talking about a profound spiritual connection, where the person chosen is the one who best gets the master's character, their philosophy, their spirit. And sometimes that person isn't a biological son at all. So the first piece of this puzzle isn't some formal document or decree. Nope, it's something much more personal. The clear, almost father-like affection that the master, Gōgen Yamaguchi, showed to his student, Deena Naidu. Now, this might just seem like a simple nickname, right? Dino-kun? But hold on. In its cultural context, this is actually a huge piece of evidence. This wasn't a public title. It was a personal term of endearment, used only by the master himself. And this really explains why that's so important. You see, kun isn't what you'd call just any student. It's reserved for someone you see as family, someone you have deep affection for. The argument is that this is the language a father would use for a son, a clear sign of their incredibly unique bond.
And if you had any doubts, well, here it is, straight from the master's biological son and official successor, Gōshi Yamaguchi. This isn't an interpretation. It's a direct, emotional confirmation from inside the family itself, backing up that idea of a deep, fatherly love.
What's crucial here is that this feeling wasn't just limited to the master. The argument gets even stronger because the entire Yamaguchi family seemed to recognize and validate the special relationship, not just with their words, but as we're about to see, with their actions. Here we've got it in black and white, a formal, written endorsement from Gōshi Yamaguchi, who's the head of the whole Gojukai organization. He's basically giving his official blessing, acknowledging Naidu's efforts and his respect for the family. That's a pretty big deal. Okay, but this next quote, wow. This is from the master's daughter, Wakako. And listen to what she's saying. She isn't talking about technique or titles. She's talking about the way, the spirit, the philosophy. And she says, Naidu is the only one in the world teaching her father's spiritual path. That is just an incredibly powerful statement. So the family's endorsement then moves from just words to these really deeply symbolic actions. They actually entrusted Deena Naidu with two of Gōgen Yamaguchi's most personal and treasured possessions. And here's why that matters so much. Passing on personal heirlooms, like a kimono or a favorite vase, isn't just a casual gift. It's a traditional act that signifies that the person receiving them is the one chosen to carry the spirit of the house forward. It's an act that's pretty much reserved for a successor, for family. All right, so we've looked at the personal connection and the family's endorsement. This third pillar of the argument moves beyond all that. It's all about the claim that Naidu was the one entrusted to continue the spirit and the vision of the martial art itself. This is another one of those powerful cultural symbols. According to the source, the master and his biological son together gave the name Goshinkan to Naidu's school. And in Japanese tradition, a father naming his son's house is a very big deal. It basically positions Naidu not just as some branch owner, but as the head of his own house, with a blessing from the patriarch himself. And crucially, Naidu is shown to be fulfilling the master's core philosophy, character before karate. This acronym here, it breaks down the whole spiritual mission of the art. So the argument is that Naidu didn't just inherit a bunch of techniques. He inherited and is actively teaching the very soul of his master's vision. So let's bring it all together. We've looked at the evidence of personal affection, the family's endorsement, and the spiritual inheritance. Now let's see how the source synthesizes all these points into its final conclusion. This really helps put the claim into context. The source notes that other potential successors either didn't work out or, well, they declined the role. This framing presents Naidu not as one of many, but as the one who was uniquely chosen, named, and entrusted directly by the family when others were not. And there you have it, the entire case, summarized. The 3 pillars of the argument for Deena Naidu as the karate son. You've got the father's personal love, the family's clear trust, and the direct inheritance of the master's spiritual way. And so we arrive at the source's powerful final statement. It concludes that when you weigh all the evidence, the spirit, the love, and that direct acknowledgement from the family, the title of the real karate son belongs to Hanshi Deena Naidu. This leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to think about, one that goes way beyond martial arts. What is the truest measure of a legacy? Is it something that's just passed down through blood and formal titles, or is it something that's earned through love, trust, and by faithfully carrying on a guiding spirit? What do you think really makes a successor?